Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be covering, obviously, a lot about cybersecurity. For anybody that has gone through this presentation previously, this presentation has actually changed pretty drastically since the beginning of the year. I've redone it, have updated a lot of the content, and while I do update it as we go, each and every month. This has added a lot of new topics as well too that I'm sure some folks will be interested in seeing. So why don't we go ahead and get this off here? My name is Brian. I'm the CTO here at PCA Technology Group. We hold these once a month. Basically, it's as a community service, not only for our clients but for anybody who wants to join. Pretty much a no sales pitch type of presentation. I'm just trying to get the information out there to folks so they can better protect themselves from bad actors and things like that. So a little bit about the agenda here. Everyone's some house cleaning as well too. One thing is that everyone's mic is muted. If you do have questions as we go here, try to put them in chat. If I catch them as I'm going through the presentation here, I will try to answer those questions on the fly. If not, we'll circle back at the end and get those questions answered if there are any. So a little bit about the agenda. We're going to go over why cybersecurity, some of the common attacks, what we should be doing with USB, mobile, and IoT devices. We'll talk a little bit about shadow IT, and then also passwords and multi-factor will also be covered. So why cybersecurity? Well, there's a couple things. First and foremost, it's really about protecting your organization and your employees, your client data, and everyone's well-being as well too. So that's really the whole concept behind this. The other thing too to mention is that AI is also being leveraged, and we'll talk more about that. It's being leveraged on both sides, the good and the bad, and we'll talk about what that exactly means. Sometimes there's insurance requirements too. So now, if you have any type of cyber insurance policy, no longer can you go through that question and just say yes, to some of those answers. You actually have to provide proof of implementations, or if you have a claim, you definitely have to provide proof that you implemented what you said you implemented. Otherwise, your claim will be denied, and you're going to be left holding the bag for whatever remediation costs or recovery costs that would be involved in any type of incident or breach. And then finally, and lastly, is really the compliance. The reason why I say last is security is more than simply compliance. So if you're just going through the paces just to check the boxes, you are really not securing yourself the way you probably should be. While compliance is a piece of that, if that's your sole focus, you're really just trying to check the boxes to get by. You may not be doing what is actually best case scenarios that you should be doing, which is above and beyond sometimes the compliance requirements. So, but if you are doing that, obviously you do have to have some type of cybersecurity plan and policies in place. It could be HIPAA, CMMC, whatever, PCI, SOC, DFS, all those good acronyms and letters there. So we'll talk a little bit more about how that all plays into this. So who's responsible for cybersecurity? Ultimately, whoever sits at the top of your org chart is where it starts. So whether that's a board, whether it's a CEO, basically the top of whoever sits at the top of your org chart, they basically own it, and they should be living and breathing it through example. So that means any policies or cybersecurity things that are in place, they should be doing all of that by example. We've seen numerous times sometimes that upper management sometimes exempts themselves from things, and that's not ideal. Obviously it's your company and you're free to do what you want, but you're setting a bad example there. So you really should be living and breathing this from the top down. And then the middle management tiers, obviously, you need to make sure that your direct reports know about the cybersecurity policies and are following, being compliant with them. should also be actively involved in the development and improvement of any type of cybersecurity policies or procedures, because ultimately, the more involvement you get from everybody, the easier it is for policies to be followed, and that leads us to basically everyone, which ultimately is the true answer to this. That everyone should know best practices and also some of the active threats and tactics that the bad actors are using. And always, if something seems odd or questionable, you should tell somebody before doing anything. Just don't blindly click on things or blindly open things or download things of those natures, because you could, stumble upon some of the tactics that the bad actors are trying to leverage. So how's all this done? Well, ideally, the bad guys realize that the easiest way into a network is basically through the people. So you can have the best security systems in the world, the best network protections and all that stuff. And I'm not saying that's not relevant, but they are pretty much rendered useless if someone opens the door from the inside. So and that's the bad actors realize that. So it's easier to get in to a network or a company by leveraging somebody on the inside, unknowingly. They let the bad actors in, and that's basically called social engineering. So it's a way of manipulating somebody to, get them to interact with something or get them to click on something that they don't really realize what they're doing, and then you kind of, unfortunately, there's ramifications to that. Sometimes it's you're allowing a malicious actor in. So we'll talk about what that looks like. So the most common attack methods, email is the biggest one. So out of all the social engineering tactics that are used out there, email is the heaviest used. I would say it accounts for about 90 to 95% of the social engineering attacks that are done out there. And that can go from spear phishing to regular phishing to BEC, which stands for business email compromise. We'll talk a little bit about what that means. And social media is also leveraged for reconnaissance, fake friends. You can get a lot of information about people by just simply trolling their social media platforms. And unfortunately, LinkedIn is also being leveraged for some of this, so you can actually get user lists and things like that. So you just got to be careful of what information you're putting on there, how much information you want to verify friend requests or contacts. Things like that. You just don't want to blindly be accepting things from people you really don't know or do business with, if it's on the LinkedIn side. So trends, there's ransomware. So ransomware, if you're not familiar with what that is, it's basically locking your data. The bad guys get into your network or company somehow or another, usually through an email phishing campaign. And once they're in there, they pretty much have two options. They can, take your data if it's valuable, and they'll exfiltrate that, which means they'll take it from wherever it's being stored locally and get that outside of your network, and they'll threaten to post that on the dark web or sell it to a competitor or something like that, and unless you pay them, some type of money. That's the extortion piece of this. And then the other side of it is maybe they won't do that, and maybe they'll just lock your data and encrypt it to the point where you can't use it or function. And the only way to hopefully get access back to that is to pay the bad actors who lock that data X amount of whatever money they're asking for, usually cryptocurrency. And in theory, hopefully you pay that and they give you the key back to unlock your data. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's a gamble. But and then sometimes they do both. They lock your data and threaten to sell it. So they might get you on both sides there. So that's some of the trends. Automation, obviously a lot of this with AI has made this a little more interesting for unfortunately companies, and we'll talk more about that. Who's behind it? It's criminal groups, could be hacktivists, nation states, and sometimes insider threats, which are basically it's someone on the inside unknowingly doing this, perhaps. Usually it's not intentional, But there's always that possibility too. But usually, again, it's leveraging someone on the inside sometimes that they don't even realize what's happening. We'll talk a little more about that too. Most of the time, the attack vectors are done via cloud or internet. Occasionally, it could be done on your mobile phone too, and we'll talk. We'll explain some examples of that. Very rarely is it physical on site, but you do need to be aware that that is also a potential attack vector. That if you're a big enough target and the bad actor is local, that could very well happen physically on site. So you just need to be cognizant of that potential as well. So we'll first kick this off with web browsing. So some key tips here for when it comes to web browsing. If you're browsing off your work machine, keep your surfing limited to business use only. The more you follow that and the more you do that, the less chance you have of potentially falling trap into an unknown site or a fake site that might be set up to steal credentials or things like that. And I'll show you examples of that coming up here shortly. We already mentioned about social media. If you don't leverage social media, and I know a lot of companies do for marketing, if you're not one of those companies, or you have specific individuals that are responsible for that, you may want to keep your other normal users off of social media, just as a protection for that to keep them potentially falling for some of the fake things that are out there as well. So you just got to be cautious of what you're posting on there. From a personal side, if you're going on vacation, please don't post that you're on vacation while you're on vacation. Wait till you get home, and then you can share your great time in the Bahamas or wherever it is you went. And at least you're back physically at your house. You're not telling somebody that, oh, hey, my house is completely empty and I'm 10,000 miles away, and you come back and your house is ransacked because someone was trolling your social media page and realized you weren't home anymore. So that's the other thing. Browsers, keep your browsers updated. Most of the browsers nowadays, whether it's Edge, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, they're pretty good at letting you know there's updates available. So if you're getting that notification saying, hey, your browser needs updated, or you see an icon up in one of the corners, and I'll kind of talk a little bit about this, that you should be updating your browsers if you're getting that notice. The bad guys are also leveraging this as a tactic, and that's the part I'll show you here coming up to try to make sure you're not falling for a fake version of a browser update. And then the pop-up windows, again, the browsers nowadays have pop-up blockers built into them. So they do tend to stop a lot of these malicious pop-up windows from coming up. However, if you do find yourself in a situation that there's a window that you're questionable about or something, and it's displaying on your screen, you can actually hit Control W or Alt F4 to get rid of that without having to click on the areas that they are trying to entice you to click on. Sometimes it's a close button or the X button at the top corner sometimes as well too. So you can always close those out at least on your workstations and laptops. Phones, there's a variety of different ways to do that. I don't do a lot of surfing off my phone, and there's no clear-cut way to kind of tell you how to get rid of those potential pop-up windows on phones, because every phone the navigation is slightly different. You can end the task, that might do it. Probably the safest bet, and again, that kind of varies from platform to platform. So this is a new attack that's been happening. It's called the browser in the browser attack. And basically what's happening is the bad actors have realized that users tend to not like to remember passwords for individual passwords and logins for the sites that they visit. So what this is leveraging, it's leveraging the fact that habit from end users are leveraging something called SSO, or single sign-on. And what this is it's basically allowing you to log into a site leveraging a username and password that you already have set up or that you've already had configured at another site. So in this case, in the example here, this is showing that someone's trying to either sign in or log into Canva, and the leveraging of the SSO is usually something like Microsoft, or it could be Facebook, it could be Apple, it could be Google. It's basically using one of those what they're called federated single sign-ons, and what that means is basically those organizations have come up with a global method that allows other sites, if they're also part of that federation, that will allow them to leverage other potential logins and passwords from other sites. So really, the end user can leverage, technically could leverage a single username and password on multiple sites if they're part of that federation. I personally don't like that. I would highly recommend using individual logins and passwords for each site you go to, because if in the event that this, you do leverage this single sign-on, there's potential that if that single sign-on gets breached, every single site you're using that on could also be leveraged and breached easily. So that's just something to keep in mind. And that's kind of the tactic behind this. So in this case, you're logging into Canva. And it's also looking like it's trying to leverage your Google account here, this is set up and designed that it's very, very difficult to detect this potential attack too. So I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So this is two different examples. So the top one here is leveraging Facebook. So this is the pop-up that you would get. Let's say you go back, on this page back here, instead of you would pick your Facebook login. So what'll happen is it'll pop up the screen in the middle of the page, and it will display basically this. So in the top left-hand corner here. So this is the phishing version of that, and this is actually the real version of that. And if you look at these, they look just alike, except for the fact that one's labeled phishing and real. For tech savvy folks, you might look at, okay, well, I'm going to check the padlock. That padlock and this padlock for the security cert would actually match. It is the real Facebook security cert. And this URL, if you would look at this the whole way out through and compare it to the real one, that is also a match. So it's 100% visually. There is no way to tell the difference if you actually are getting the real version of that login prompt, or if it's a malicious version set up by an attacker, because they look exactly alike. Everything visually looks exactly alike. This is also an example, same example basically, except now they selected Google. And again, if you look at these visually, in this case, the only difference is this one does have a create an account at the bottom here, but that really wouldn't raise questions or red flags for me visually. In this case, you can see, because they're side by side, but even if you look at the hyperlinks and all that, everything this points to is Google, Google, Google. It's not misspelled. It's not putting you to a fake site or anything like that. It is really, visually, it looks exactly like the real one. So you can't tell visually whether it's real or not. So how do you know if you are leveraging this? How do you know if you got a real version of this, or if it's somehow you were tricked into going to a malicious site? First, let me explain that if you do put your information in there on the fake one, what it does is it's going to let you log into whatever site you are trying to log into. So an example, on the previous page here, if we're doing this on Canva and you put your login information in a fake window that pops up because they've somehow intercepted that, and it will actually let you log into Canva. It will use whatever login, in this case, it's Google. However, it's also sending that information back to the bad guys. So now they have your username and password. So you can see how dangerous this potentially could be, because if you leverage this across multiple sites, you've basically given your credentials away. So again, if visually you can't tell, however, what you can do, if you are leveraging this, or you want to leverage this, this is obviously one of these two windows is going to pop up in the center of your screen when you try to leverage that single sign-on. What you can do is you can grab that pop-up window that's there, which would be one of these two, and you try to drag that. So you grab the top bar and try to drag that window outside of your browser window. So in this case, you would drag it outside of the border of your browser window. If that window actually lets you drag it outside of your browser window, and it basically lets you break the borders of your browser window, more likely than not, that is the real version of this, and you can safely use it. If you try to drag that outside the browser window and it actually stops at the borders, it won't let you break out of the browser, there's a good chance it could be a fake version. That's about the only way you can really tell whether it's good or not. And it's mainly because of how the bad guys are displaying that fake version, and how integrated in it is. It just won't let you break outside that browser window. So that's about the only true way you can really avoid this type of an attack. And I'll show you an example of what that looks like here very shortly. I brought this up too with your browser update. So this is called a clear fake attack. And basically what this is you end up going to a website, and on that website, it's you may have mistyped it, or you may have got directed to a different site or something like that, that you thought you were going to a good site or whatever. But you get to that website and it comes up saying, oh, hey, you need to update your browser. It actually displays that when you visit the website. And then it'll give you handy download links for whatever, whether it's Edge or Chrome or Firefox, whichever. And again, this is a malicious page, and what it's trying to do is get you to download a malicious version of that browser that is either compromised or something. So if you ever get to a website and it actually pops up that you need to update your browser, more likely than not, I don't click on those links. And you can go most of the time in the corners of your browser, it'll show you if there's updates available. Usually they'll be where the three bars are, or the three dots. In this case, it'll show that there's an update pending. That's the browser itself showing you that, not the actual window that's being displayed here. That's a good way to indicate that, hey, this isn't real, because it's not really showing that. So you got to be cautious of that, because the bad guys are leveraging this type of attack. And then we have email. So email, kind of the same thing with browsing. Don't use it for business, or keep your business email separate from personal. Doing that will definitely eliminate a lot of potential attack vectors that bad actors leverage. If you keep your business email completely isolated from personal usage, because they're leveraging things like purchasing, whether it's Amazon, eBay, they do shipping notices, fake invoices sometimes. And if you're not doing any of that type of stuff with your business email, you don't even have to question whether the email is good or not. If you are mixing personal with business, and I know a lot of people do, it makes it very, very difficult to figure out, is this real? Is it not real? Oh, yeah, I did buy something off Amazon. Is it real? Is it not real? I don't know. Keep them separated. Keep your business email for business purposes, and use your personal for the things that are not business oriented, and that will actually protect you severely, going a lot, if you just follow that simple rule. The other one you should be following is, if you get emails that have embedded links in them, and we'll show you an example of that here in the next slide, don't click on those links. Instead of clicking on, unless it's something you just generated, and I'll talk to that here shortly. But if you follow this simple rule, if any email comes in and it is something that you weren't expecting, or something you just generated, don't click on those links. What I want you to do instead is open up a browser window. I want you to go to whatever site it's asking you to click on that link to. I want you to type that in yourself. That way you're getting to the right site. And then it'll probably prompt you for your username and password. And then you can log in that way. You follow this never click on links, that will protect you probably 98% from falling victim to most of the attacks that occur via email. It's really that's really what they're doing. They really want you to click on those links, and I'll show you why they want to do that here in the next slide. And again, be aware, be cautious. If something doesn't look right or feel right, make sure you're asking somebody or bring it to someone's attention before interacting with it any further. You don't even need to open it up. If you're getting a questionable email that says, "Oh, hey, here's my resume," why would you send me your resume? I'm not in HR. I'm just an employee here. Why am I getting a resume? Or I'm getting an invoice from eBay. I didn't buy anything from eBay. Why would you even open that up? If you have an internal IT staff, talk to them before you open it or show them it. If you're a customer of PCA, call our service desk. We can quickly look at it too, and determine whether it's legit or bogus, which more likely than not, it probably is. I mean, if you're questioning it in the first place, it's probably not valid. So here's an example. This is called phishing and farming. So phishing obviously is sending an email out to somebody, pretending to be somebody they're not. In this case, it's pretending to be Microsoft. I'm sending it to a user saying, "Hey, your password is expired, and I need you to change it." And I'll provide you with a handy link there. And if one link isn't good enough, I'll send you a second link that I'm trying to convince you to click on. Again, you get one of these emails out of the blue, and you think it might be valid, please don't click on these links. What I want you to do is open up a browser window, and I want you to go to, in this case, Outlook.com yourself, if that's the actual email service that you use. And then I want you to log in with your credentials because you've got to the right page. You actually physically typed it. If you fall for this, because this is actually a phishing email, and you click on one of these two links, what will happen? It'll take you to a website that looks just like Outlook.com, and you're going to put your username and your password in there, and it's not going to work, but it will send those credentials to the person that set up that sent you this email and put this fake site up, basically to harvest your credentials. So again, that's why you should never click on any links that come via email, unless it's something you just generated. Sometimes if you just sign up for I don't know, a service or something, maybe you logged into a new business site, it might send you, "Hey, verify that you just signed up." That's something different because it's something you just generated and you are potentially expecting that. But if you get that out of the blue, I would be very, very careful clicking on any of those embedded links. Open up browsers and type them in yourself. That way you're getting to the correct site. And this is just a graphical explanation of how this all works. So again, bad guy creates a phishing email gets sent to the target. Usually it's whoever. I could just be sending them out to thousands and thousands and thousands of people, just waiting for someone to click on one of those links. They click on that link and it goes to a fake site. That's basically the site that the bad guy set up. They log in with whatever credentials that fake site is mimicking, and that sends it to the hacker. And now the hacker is going to use that to actually get into the real site using your credentials that you just basically gave them. So that's kind of the concept behind this. And again, this is the same thing with that browser and the browser attack thing. It's the exact same concept, except instead of a phishing email, they're just painting that page to try to steal your single sign-on credentials. So it's the same exact concept. So phishing is basically sending out, bulk emails out to multiple users, hoping someone opens them up. Spear phishing is similar. However, spear phishing is a little more targeted. So spear phishing tends to target HR. They tend to target payroll, things like that. And basically it appears to be coming from an employee from the inside. And usually, they send it to someone in payroll or someone in HR saying, "Hey, I would like to update my direct deposit information and I'd like to have it done, now. Here's my new info. Please change it. Thanks. Appreciate it." If you don't have policies and procedures as a company to verify that this is actually a legitimate request from the person they're claiming to be, and usually that would be in person. It either has to be done in person or you call them at a known phone number that you already have on file. Never call them back at any number they might include here. So you have to have, a phone number or contact information for that person that's already on file, and then verify, "Hey, did you make this request?" Because if you don't and you just blindly follow this, you're going to send someone's payroll to a drop account. Basically, it was set up with fake or stolen identity credentials. And once that money hits the bank account's going to get emptied and closed. And by the time you realize what happened, you've got the real employee who this supposedly came from, wondering why they didn't get paid that week. And you realize you've just been duped, basically. So you got to be very, very careful. Again, any type of email transactions that are asking for any type of financial transaction at all, whether it's wire transfers, and we'll show you that here in a second, or changing my direct deposit, or any type of financial requests, you got to be very careful and verify first verify that it is a legitimate request coming from the person that they claim to be. And again, that's either in person or at a known phone number that you have already on file for that entity. So that leads us into the next one. It's called whaling. So whaling is targeting either pretending to be the big fish, or somebody that works underneath a C-level, usually is senior level folks, is what this targets. So this kind of goes in the same concept. It pretends, in this case here, it's someone pretending to be the CFO and reaching out to somebody internally that's probably in the finance department, I would assume, and saying, hey, I'm out of the office. I need you to process a wire transfer for me today. Let me know when you get this, and I'll send you the details. Or it could be, hey, I need you to go buy me some gift cards. I'm at a client site and I want to give them out as a gift. It's a variety of different ways they could spend this. Again, you need to verify in person or at a known number anytime you get these type of financial requests via email, because it's the only way you can surely know it is actually the person sending this. And I know a lot of folks have an issue questioning C-level entities, and ultimately you're looking out for the best interest of the company. So I don't think a CEO or CFO or any C-level is going to get that upset with you calling and verifying and asking, to make sure that this is actually a legitimate request coming from them, before you just blindly follow it. I think it would be actually, frowned upon if you didn't do this. And they find out that, oh my gosh, you just blindly followed this, so just that's sometimes we had feedback that I can't question my C-level. Well, you're not really questioning it. You're just, verifying that it was actually that person making this request. So. And then the bad actors have realized that, hey, people are getting a little smarter. They're starting to question things. They're starting to not fall for the same old traps. So they change it up a bit. So this is called consent phishing. And what consent phishing is basically tricking users into allowing them access by using applications that allow them to get access to things that they normally wouldn't have access to. So, this is an example of it. Basically, it's a Microsoft app that's created. The whole intent behind this is to pop this up on a screen. You could be on a website or something, or it might be an email link or whatever, and this will pop up and say, hey, there's permissions being requested from this application, and if you don't be careful with this and you blindly just hit accept here, what you're doing basically, if you go down through and look at what all this is asking for permission wise, you're basically giving whoever created this malicious this app is basically, you're giving them the keys to the entire Microsoft ecosystem for yourself. They can send email, they can read your email, they can look at your files, they can look at your Teams, they can look at your SharePoint, they can look at your OneDrive, they can do everything. And if you do have multi-factor, this actually bypasses that too. So that doesn't stop this either. So if you ever get one of these application windows popping up saying it's asking for permissions, don't blindly click on that. Make sure you either, again, report it to your internal IT if you have one, or if you're a client of ours, you reach out to us and we'll take a look at it. There are some valid instances of this sometimes. However, it's very rare that those would just pop up out of the blue. So if you do come across those, please don't just blindly click those, and let somebody know, because this is really difficult to find after the fact. It's not an easy thing to track down. So if you have, if you ever think you did click on one of those, let somebody know that immediately too, because the faster we track this down, the easier it is to do that. This really goes back to that business email compromise. This is what they do. They go in and try to leverage previous conversations, and they blindly send out mails to thousands and thousands of people pretending that they're you. And they're hiding all this in the background, so you don't even realize it's happening. And this is leveraged heavily for that. So just be aware of that. And then they're also using something called quishing. So quishing is leveraging these QR codes. A lot of folks see these now. They've become a big thing since the pandemic with COVID and touchless menus and touchless pretty much everything. So these can be leveraged nefariously as well. Obviously, you blindly send this saying, hey, there's a voicemail, click this, or scan this with your phone. So you scan this, and what happens is, your normal methods of verifying where this might be sending you to are pretty much out the window, because most of the time these are shortened URLs, so they really don't show you where you're going until you get there. And at that point, it could be too late. So, just be careful what you're scanning, what you're not scanning with these, and just make sure that you at least have some trust in the source of it. It's very easy to manipulate people with this. If I was physically targeting a company that was local, I could figure out where they go for lunch and just drop malicious versions of these on the tables, literally as menus. And by the time the staff or the person even realized something happened, it would be, you could have so many victims potentially with this that they wouldn't even know what was going on. So that's rare. As I mentioned, most people aren't being physically targeted, but just be cautious. You should be a little aware of what you're scanning, what you're not scanning. So that brings us up to AI. So anybody that's using AI or artificial intelligence, and now I'm talking like your Chat GPTs, your Bard, which has just been renamed, I believe, Copilot, anybody that's heard any of those terms, you've got to be a little aware of what AI is going to do. So first, let's start off with the good. So AI is one of those situations that if leveraged in a safe and secure manner, it is able to obviously increase productivity. It also allows some machine-driven automation to processes and things like that. It could be used for research. It could be used for a whole bunch of good things that could definitely be time-saving. Maybe you're writing a letter and you have a mental block for some reason. You can ask AI to create that letter for you. You can hunt and peck and steal whatever it is you want that it regurgitates back out. That's the good side of it. So the bad side of it is that while it can be leveraged for useful and productive methods, it also allows bad actors that are unskilled. Now it allows them to be able to perform some malicious attacks potentially, or malicious intent that they don't necessarily have the skills to do, because the AI is going to do it for them. Now, I'll say that with some precursors. So basically, the public versions of AI do have guardrails or boundaries. So you can't go in and ask the AI engines to do things that it's programmed to deem as malicious, at least directly. And I say that with tongue in cheek, because obviously you can't go in and ask it things that could cause bodily harm to people or are known to be malicious. However, with something called prompt injection and prompt manipulation, which is basically me, instead of outright asking AI to do something specific that I know it's not able to do, or maybe I do ask it and it tells me it can't do that, I can manipulate my question into multiple questions and end up getting the AI to give me what I wanted in the first place. I'm just basically social engineering the AI by manipulating questions and asking it a series of questions that build off the question before. So the AI boundaries kind of get confused and it starts to spit out information that I do want. So it can be leveraged for bad actors. And an example of that is maybe, hey, give me a, if I go in an AI, hey, give me create me a program that will log every stroke that someone's typing on the keyboard, and is undetectable. It'll come back and say, I'm sorry, I can't do that because that's malicious intent, has privacy issues and things like that. But instead, I might, start prompt injecting questions, build off of that, and start asking in small bite-sized pieces. And eventually, over a period of time, it's going to give me what I initially asked for. I'm just doing it in a way that it doesn't realize it's giving it to me. So, the AI is only going to do what it's programmed to do. And if you can get around some of the programming glitches, you can actually get it to do anything you want it to do that it's programmed to do, even if it's programmed not to do that. So that's the part of the bad piece. It definitely allows unskilled individuals to potentially have malicious intent that don't necessarily have the skills to perform that. Now, with that in mind, you also have to look at the ugly. So what is the ugly? The ugly is there's potential to accidentally maybe leak sensitive information when you're using public-based AI engines. What do I mean by that? Well, as I mentioned, sometimes you might be using this for a letter. Maybe you want it to proofread a letter that you already have. And what you may not realize is, okay, you're gonna feed this into AI, and it's gonna go down through and proofread it and make suggestions and whatnot. If you have any type of sensitive information in that, if someone asks the right questions, it could very well share that sensitive information because it's just regurgitating what you're feeding into it. So you've got to be aware that on the public versions of AI, anything you're asking it can be regurgitated back to anybody else because that's how it learns. It's learning as it goes, and people are asking questions. Those questions could technically be regurgitated as information for somebody else asking a different question. Now, again, there's private versions of these AI engines. I take it with a grain of salt. I'm not saying they're not being truthful, but I find it hard to believe that it will use all the information out there for your purpose, but when you give it your information, it's not going to share that information back out to others. But I don't know. I'm not convinced that it's not going to share that information even in private instances. But what I will say is just be careful. That's my take is if you are going to feed it information, make sure that any privacy issues or any sensitive information is redacted. Pull that information out and then put it back in once you're done leveraging AI, because it could spit out social security numbers, it could spit out credit card numbers, client numbers, account numbers. It could do all that if you feed it into that and unknowingly. So just you definitely got to be aware. And if anybody's seen the news recently, you may have seen this. This actually happened to a company in Hong Kong. It just like within the last week and a half. There was an individual there and this was a heavily used AI malicious intent. It's basically a deep fake, and basically what it was is malicious actors leveraged AI to create a meeting with somebody at a Hong Kong organization. And it was actually like a Zoom or a Teams meeting. And there was, I think, 5 or 6 people that were in this meeting. And during this meeting, one of them was the CEO. And during this meeting, the CEO asked an individual to wire transfer a $25 million amount of money. In the meeting, there was other folks that the person recognized. And so she did that, and then found out that the only person in that meeting that was real was the person of the victim, the person that they had to transfer. Everything else was AI generated. The voices, the video, everything was pieced together. So she was basically having a meeting that was generated by AI with 5 other people, that one she thought was her CEO and the other one was coworkers. And she was completely duped by it. and she sent $25 million to whoever, initially set up that meeting. So you got to be aware that, again, that she should, even though it seems real and it was on video, you probably should have a verification again, either in person or at a known phone number, and hope that the bad actors don't have the phone number hijacked, where they can mimic the voice at the other end, because she really had no clue that the other 4 people or 5 people in that call were not real. They were all generated by AI. So it's scary. But you just got to be aware of that kind of thing. Obviously, as time goes on, more protections and things will come into effect, but there's always a way of leveraging, this type of technology for malicious intent, unfortunately. So you just got to be aware of that. So some of the anti-phishing tips, obviously, never click links. Again, if you do that, you will avoid many of the attacks that are done out there. Again, verify any type of financial requests that are being done simply by email, either verbally or at a known contact number. The other thing too, if you're not leveraging external banners, you should be. It's an easy visual way to spot potential fakes. So basically, this is an external banner that shows on every email that comes in from the outside. So in the case that someone's pretending to be your CEO or someone's pretending to be an internal employee, and it's fake, it would actually have this banner on it. That should be a huge red flag. If you're seeing this banner on somebody that supposedly is either a coworker or an employee, they're not using their internal email, because it would not have this banner on it. So that should be a huge red flag if you're getting an email that's from someone claiming to be anybody that is a coworker. And you should really question what the email contains. And again, if you do see something, make sure that you're reporting it, or something seems off, obviously question it before you interact with that. So USB and mobile and IoT devices, USB, are the little flash drives. If you ever find those, don't plug those into your machines if you don't know where it came from, because there could be a malicious piece of software on there that could be leveraged once it's plugged in without you realizing it. Make sure that your antivirus and software is being updated. Never blindly or accept electronic devices sent via the mail. So if you all of a sudden get an iPad or something like that, or a smartwatch or whatever, Alexa sometimes, via email in the mail, it just blindly shows up. Don't plug that in. Don't connect that to your work network. It could very well have been sent by a malicious actor, and it has malicious software on it that's just waiting for you to do that. This tactic was used heavily at some military bases, and unfortunately, it's leveraging. They send these things to some of the soldiers that are at these bases, and of course, not knowing the intent behind it. They get a smartwatch or they get an iPad. And with the stresses of being a soldier in and of itself, they're not really thinking there'd be any malicious intent to that, and they just connect it to the inside of the military base's network, and now they're actually on the network on the inside because they potentially just allowed them to do that. So you always got to be questioning that kind of thing. If you are using IoT devices are Internet of Thing devices. It could be your television, it could be your Alexa, it could be a Ring device. Thermostat, everything's a smart device now. Wash machines, things like that. You should really be isolating them off of your normal day-to-day network, whether it's work or even at home. Because while you're putting those things in place, you may not, and you may not realize this, but nobody is really managing those for you. Which means if there's any holes or exploits in those things, unless you're going in and manually updating them many times, they're just left there. You put them in and you forget about them, and nobody, the manufacturer isn't updating them sometimes. And if you're not going in and manually checking for updates, they're never getting updated. So you've actually, maybe opening a hole up into your home network or corporate network by having these devices sitting on there. TVs are a big one. They never auto update. Very rarely. So you have to go in there and constantly check those. So if you keep them isolated, at least those devices are on a completely separate network versus what you normally use day to day with maybe your computer and things. So If you go out and about, smartphones, make sure that you're charging them with the part that plugs into the wall. Not A lot of times they're USB cables. Don't plug that into your machine or laptop to charge your laptop. While that will work, you may not realize it also turns your phone into a USB device. And if there's something malicious on your phone just waiting for that to happen, it could eventually run something that you may not be aware of. Public charging stations. It's called juice jacking. Like I just mentioned, these are set up sometimes at hotel lobbies, airports, bookstores, sometimes coffee shops. Don't leverage those with your phone. If your battery's dying or whatever, wait till you get to either your car and charge it that way, or carry your wall brick and plug into an outlet and charge it yourself. If you come across a malicious one of these public charging stations, again, as I mentioned, you're going to plug this in and it's going to charge your phone. But it could potentially also, because it's turning this into a USB device, it could steal every piece of information off your phone while it's charging, and you don't even realize it. Now there are special cables and things out there that will stop that. However, it's much easier just to avoid it in the first place, and you don't have to worry about it. So just be aware that also happens. Vishing. This happened at anybody that's heard, the MGM or Caesars incident with the casinos that ended up getting breached. This is exactly how this happened. So vishing is just basically calling in to somebody and pretending to be somebody else. And in this case, bad actors called into the casinos and pretended to be IT support. And the person that answered the phone believed them and let them have access to their machines. And once they got access to the machines, they put software in there that allowed them to access it after the phone call. And they just basically pivoted all around the internal inside of the casino network by simply just picking up the phone and calling somebody. Again, that's social engineering. As I mentioned, the easiest way in is to get somebody to let you in, and that's exactly what happened at those two casinos. And then there's smishing. So smishing is basically texting. And so it's still using phone, but it's using text, SMS texts. So a lot of times these start out with, you might get a text from somebody, "Hey, had a great time last night." And you're immediately like, I think you got the wrong number. And then all of a sudden you're now interacting with somebody you have no idea who it even is. If you get a text like that, first of all, don't respond. You're just opening yourself up to potential, adult-oriented pictures that are going to get sent back to you potentially, and things like that. You don't want to go down that path. So just block the number. Don't respond. Block the number and be done with it. And so that's something else. They might text you and say, "Oh, hey, you've won this," or your Verizon, account is locked or whatever. If you think that's real, I want you to, again, open up your computer, go to Verizon yourself, log in by you typing in the browser, that URL. Once you're in there, if that's real, it's going to, hey, your account's locked or something. Don't just blindly follow, a text that comes out of the blue like that. And then we have shadow IT. So shadow IT is basically something that this happens a lot when at the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned that sometimes employees and managers aren't necessarily always involved in sometimes the creation of security policies and things like that. So, and this doesn't necessarily mean this is always intentional. It just happens sometimes. So, this is potentially adding software on your work machine that wasn't put there by the person that gave you that work, and it may not be for work. So by you simply putting on software that isn't work related, that is a form of shadow IT. And while it may not be intentional, it's, oh, well, I use this at home when I read my Kindle, and I put Kindle on here. Okay, well, was Kindle put on there by your work in the first place? No, that could technically fall under the shadow IT. And now that's another piece of software that somebody in security has to worry about, or may not even know they need to worry about it because you put it on there maliciously. Cloud apps are a big one. Oh, I'm using Dropbox, or I'm Google Drive or iCloud. You're using those and leveraging those without authorization. That's a big no-no and a very big risk, because there could be data in places that could have sensitive data that people may not realize that is even out there or in there. or maybe you're installing remote access software on your machine, so you can work remotely that may not be authorized or put there. Again, uh, the bad actors are leveraging a lot of commercial type of software that is for remote access. AnyDesk is a big one that they leverage. Screen Connect is another one. Sometimes Go to Assist. They actually leverage these commercial versions of them. And so by you putting that on there, it's very difficult to know whether it's being done by a malicious actor or whether it's being done by a user, and things like that. So it's something that you shouldn't be putting that software on there without talking to somebody first. Any of this software, really. And then obviously the security protection. So maybe there is a security protection in there that it's a website you can't go to. So you decide you're going to put some software on there to try to subvert that block so you can get to that website. Well, that's something you're deliberately trying to circumvent. And you've got to first of all evaluate what you're trying to do. First of all, you could be creating a security risk, or if there's a legitimate reason why you feel you need to get to that website, then maybe you need to bring it up to somebody that maybe the security control that's in place isn't the right one, or maybe it's too restrictive. So that again, shadow IT isn't always malicious intent. It just could be inadvertently because someone is doing something on a work related machine and not realizing that there could be potential ramifications to that because of software that they're adding or leveraging cloud apps that the company doesn't necessarily use and things like that. So you got to be aware of that. So passwords at this point, we kind of I've changed my stance on this, and anybody that's been through this before, I'll touch on that real quickly here. So at this point, and this probably will go over very, very well, and I say that tongue in cheek, we are recommending that passwords should be at least 14 characters in length at this point. And the reason being is because of how fast the passwords can actually be broken. I mean, you can see here on a 9-digit password, we're talking hours for a 9-digit password. 11 is at 3 years. Now, this was last year. So that the stats for this year, all these are going to start moving up the chain here. So this 3 years is probably, probably months now, not years. So we recommend at least 14 characters. They should contain at least a special character. These are examples of those. It should contain at least an uppercase letter, a number. This is the part that I've changed. Before I wasn't a big fan of password managers, but because we're getting so high in these numbers, you have to use some type of password manager or Vault to remember these passwords. I don't have any specific ones that are recommended. The one I will say, if you are using, or don't look at this one if you're not using it, at least for the time being, would be LastPass. That's the one I would avoid at this point. They've had some breaches, and I'm not sure how secure or not secure they are at this point. But I would try to avoid that one. But there's a lot of other ones out there. I think there's OnePass, there's Bitwarden, there's a bunch of them out there. Dashlane, I think, is another one. So I would definitely recommend that that would be used. And please don't save your passwords in your browsers. The first thing a bad guy is going to go after if he gets access to your machine is that file. He's going to dump that file. And if you're storing your passwords in your browser, when it says, oh, well, yeah, save my password, you're just asking for trouble because they're going to dump that and they're going to have it basically with very little effort to get that. So multi-factor, this is based on the premise of something you know and something you have. So something you know is your password. And something you have is usually like a cell phone or a token that's being generated. So when you log in with your username and password, and then it'll prompt you for a phone, or maybe it's even a push. So sometimes it might actually push and say, hey, is this you logging in? And you hit yes. So it could be something like that. It definitely adds extra layers of security. It doesn't stop everything, but it does stop a majority of the common attacks out there. Unless you're being targeted, that's where this number goes down a lot, and I'll show you why in a second here. But it's definitely useful. So that leads us to well, there are some negative things to MFA. So the bad guys are leveraging, especially this leverages if you're using push. And this only works if your credentials have been compromised already. So, basically what the bad actor is doing is they're logging in with your username and password, it's sending that push to your phone. You're like, huh, what? Why? I don't know. That's not me. And you hit no. 2 seconds later, it pops up again. Are you trying to log in? No. Are you trying to log in? No. Are you trying to log in? No. And you eventually get so frustrated because this thing just doesn't stop. You're going to hit yes at some point. That's what the bad guy wants you to do. And that's why they keep doing what they're doing. They're trying to get you to hit yes, because the multi-factor is the only thing keeping them out of your account. Instead of doing that and getting frustrated, what I want you to do is if you get 1 or 2 of these, or 3 or 4 of them, you should be questioning, first of all, what is it? Okay. Now, there are some times where I know a lot of folks are using VPN and they're using this push technology with VPN. And sometimes the VPN disconnects and reconnects. If you are using VPN, see if it's your VPN connection. If it is, you probably can hit yes on this because it's probably either the connection dropped or something like that, or it timed out and you need to reset it. But if you're getting one of these and you're not on the VPN and you're not trying to log into the VPN, or maybe it's a different account, you should probably go to that account and change your password, because more likely than not that you wouldn't be getting that push unless they have your username and password. So that's the easiest way to kind of avoid those type of things. But just be aware that sometimes that happens. I'm going to skip over this because we're short on time. This is just kind of an adversary in the middle. This actually goes to show if I am targeting you, I can get in with your MFA, even if you're using it. I can actually bypass it. It takes some work to do, but I can trick you into basically let me do it. But I'm not going to cover that right now because we're short on time. So some security reminders: don't click on links, obviously, within emails. I'm going to keep saying that. I probably said it about 20 times so far. That will save your bacon so much if you just follow that rule. Verify the person is whom they claim to be. Again, you should be calling them back or seeing them in person. Utilizing strong passwords in MFA. Store passwords securely, whether that's in a password vault of some sort or another, or a password manager that you have. Think before you act. Again, if something looks weird, you're probably right. If something seems odd, you're probably right. Make sure you're regularly backing up your data. And then, in the event you do have ransomware, you got to be careful because now the federal government, if law enforcement gets involved and you simply panic and turn off your machine, there's instances where some law enforcement agencies are considering that damage to evidence, and they could actually hold you responsible for incriminating the damaging evidence, because a lot of times this ransomware, the proof of that actually goes away when you power your machine down. You can unplug the network cable. That's the best bet to do. Unplug the network cable, or you can call us, obviously, if it's during if it's an emergency and we catch it fast enough, we can actually isolate the machine remotely where it'll protect it from your network, from spreading. But it won't, it won't still allow us to connect to the machine to figure it out what's going on with it. So just be aware of that. You will get an email for those that have signed up for this with a certificate, if you're doing this for compliance or annual basis. And some upcoming events. We do have a CyberSmart series. That's a different thing. It's not really end user oriented. It's more towards tech people and C-level. So if there's anybody on here that is a tech role and wants to learn more at a higher level of maybe some of the acronyms and things like that, that's basically what that series is there. We do have some podcasts too that cover a lot more details of what's going on here. Let me just check the chat right here. Just looks like someone mentioned through Napa E&O Insurance, they have a password keeper. So I'm assuming that's through the insurance company there. They have their own recommended version. So if you're a customer of theirs or a client of theirs, you could probably use their password keeper. I don't see any other questions in chat. I do thank everybody for their time. I apologize, we went just a hair over. But hopefully this was useful. And if you have any other questions or concerns, you can send them over to info, and I'll be sure to answer those for you as they come across. So thank you for your time today, and have a great rest of your February.